More accomplished political resume than our guest today, Senator Jim Risch, of course, from the great state of Idaho. So happy to have you in, Senator Risch.
And I thank you. Glad to be
honestly so much to come in the day after Christmas. Did you have a Merry Christmas?
Had a great Christmas. Had the family, and it's that's what it's all about.
And I have to say, I said to him when he came in, I said, this is truly Idaho. When the senator himself drives into the parking lot and walks himself into the building.
How was I going to get here?
Well, you know what I mean. There's a lot of folks that travel with congressmen around the country. But anyway, it's happy to have you here. We're going to cover a lot of ground here in a short amount of time, so we're going to jump into re-election. Okay. You've decided to run for re-election again. What motivates you to run for another 6-year term?
Well, Don, I think one thing is, one thing I learned in the United States, and even though I have, as you know, a long background before that, including almost 30 years in our state Senate, it really takes a long time to get your feet on the ground in the United States Senate. You don't just walk in there and all of a sudden you're up and running. It takes a long period of time. Plus, both Senator Crapo and I have gotten ourselves in position where we're pretty helpful to Idaho. I'm chairman of Foreign Relations Committee. I'm number 2 on the Intelligence Committee. I'm number 1 actually on Small Business Committee, although Senator Rubio's chairman. And I'm on the Energy and Natural Resources Committee, which is really important in Idaho. I'm number 3 on that committee, so it takes a while to get there.
Yeah, explain to Idahoans how that does help us when we have seniority in Congress.
Well, first of all, if you're chairman of a committee, it's huge because chairman of the committee has really controls the committee. In the state legislature, the committee can actually overrule the chairman of the committee. That doesn't happen, can't happen in the U.S. Senate. So you carry a pretty big stick. I mean, if you want to stop something, you stop it. If you want to move something, it's a little harder. You got to get your troops to get behind you. But it's a big deal.
Lots of good things happening in the country. I know we are focusing on one particular item, it seems.
Which is that?
We'll get to that in just a second. I'm not even going to talk about it off the top. But I do want to ask you that a number of things have been happening. Bills are being passed. The country is running. We have continued work on the trade disagreements with China. We have both parties working together to try and find a solution to lower prescription drug prices. I want to talk about cybersecurity, something you're involved with. A number of bills have been passed, but the Democrats say that scores of critical bills are sitting on the majority leader's desk. Is that true? And if it is that just part of Washington politics?
Yeah, there's a lot of rhetoric there. I mean, it isn't a lot different than what it's been before, if indeed it's different at all. But a single bill doesn't pass the Senate like it does in the House. The House, they pass them, we get lots and lots of bills that come over. To get them enacted into law in the Senate, it generally takes you to find a place on the train that's leaving the station. We don't pass nearly as many bills, but they're huge. This last week, the Senate passed the National Defense Authorization Act and 2 huge appropriation bills. Usually there's 11 of them. They boil them down to 2. These were thousands of pages of bills that contained all kinds of stuff from over in the House. And there'll always be criticism.
So I visualize this, so you're not saying there's this stack of 6 to 8 feet of paper sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk.
No, not on Mitch's desk. They're mostly online. But the House, that's always a complaint in every legislative body, that the other body isn't passing your legislation, and you have to work at that. But it gets done.
Okay. You mentioned you served as the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and there has been the Senate hearings on cybersecurity. What is the greatest threat to our country's freedom and prosperity in your view? Well,
I guess you'd want to break it down into internal and external. But the statement's always been made that our biggest threats come from inside as opposed to outside. Nobody's ever going to defeat us. We're the 800-pound gorilla on the planet. We do really well militarily, but cybersecurity is a challenge. That's one of the biggest challenges. Over the rest of this century, I think China's going to be a big challenge. I view China as a competitor, not an enemy. I think that we're fortunate that when we compete with China, we're not dealing with a country that has this deep religious conviction that you have to overcome to get things done. They don't view things in that way. The downside is, however, they're awful on human rights, and they're awful on the way they treat people, and they're also awful on how they comply with international norms. These are all challenges for us, and they're going to continue to be challenged for us into the 21st century.
What do we make of current news we just talked about it before we went on there, with China and Russia and Iran working together in these military exercises?
Yeah, I don't think anybody should be shocked by that. Anytime there's trouble in the world and bad things are happening, usually Iran has their hands into it. Usually Russia has their hands into it, and frequently China has their hands into it, and we're on the other side. There's nothing unusual about that. I don't care whether you're talking about Venezuela, whether you're talking about Lebanon, whether you're talking about the Arabian Peninsula. These forces get their hands into it. The worst one's Russia. They don't look, when you're dealing with China. Pretty easy. What you do is you just hang on to your wallet, okay, when you're dealing with them. When you're dealing with Russia, it isn't that easy, because they pursue anarchy. They pursue upheaval. They aren't into the kinds of things that other civilized countries are in. So it becomes more challenging. Just as when they attempted to interfere with our elections. I mean, they were on both sides of it. They were, and whenever we have issues here, civil issues, domestic issues in America, they're at it on the internet.
Disinformation on the internet.
Disinformation on the internet, and they spend billions of dollars just causing trouble, and to no end. I mean, other than to convince their people that, oh, look at America, they got all these problems over there. You're a lot better off than Americans are.
So many people, the expression of going down that hole on the internet. We have misinformation and disinformation, but obviously a big difference there with disinformation is deliberate. And that's where I believe, right, that Russia is just throwing so much in there.
Certainly, yeah. They have troll farms. They have actual entities set up.
So that's
these are governmental entities. This isn't, everybody here talks about the kids sitting in the basement in China or Russia doing this. There are actual events, and there are actual entities in Russia, and for that matter in China, that are involved in putting disinformation out there and disguising it. They're very good at disguising it, looking like it's coming from a legitimate source. The good news is as we mature, as the internet matures, people are becoming more and more and more cautious about what they see on the internet. They don't just read it and say, oh, well, that's it. Most people, not everybody.
No, it's a tough world we live in, and the horse, as they say, has left the barn on that one, unfortunately, when it comes to what we were seeing on the internet. You mentioned Russia, and this is happening in the last month. Not happy with Turkey's purchase of the Russian missile system, the S-400.
S-400.
How's that going to play out?
Well, not well. You probably saw the stories.
And they're an ally.
I got to put this gently. They're an ally. They're a NATO ally, but they're not acting like an ally. I guess that's the bottom line. They've purchased the S-400 missiles from Russia, which is a violation of our CATSA Act, which requires us to sanction them. But more importantly than that, they are getting drawn more and more and more into Russia's orbit. People say to me, "Oh, we got to be careful we don't push them all the way there." Listen, they're there. I spent over a half an hour just like this with Erdogan, with the president kind of being the umpire in the thing, although he didn't. He sat and listened carefully, but we went round and round about it, and Erdogan was given an opportunity to get rid of the S-400s, buy our Patriot missiles, as any good NATO ally should, and actually come away with it without him cost him anything. He declined. He wants to stay with the 400 missiles. This is a problem for him.
So yes, this got under your skin. And so
well, he has 115 F-35 fighter jets ordered here in the United States. 5 of them are done. They're paid for. They're sitting here. As chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, I have a say. Not a say. I can veto the shipment of any military supplies overseas. And I sat right here and told him, I says, as long as you have the S-400 missiles, there isn't one F-35 that's going to get delivered to Turkey. And this isn't right. You can't have a NATO ally airplane and then Russian operated and Russian constructed defense missiles in the same place. It can't be done. And so,
do you trust them?
In what regard?
Well,
I guess the answer would be no.
No,
I mean,
but you've let your view and your opinion known to him personally.
Personally, and
6 feet away. But now
right.
it's on the president's.
Well, the
desk,
president
right?
and I have had lengthy discussions about this, and he understands that we can't have this, and it's flat not going to happen, and this is going to deteriorate with Turkey. We could talk about Turkey for hours here, but look, they're not a third world country. They're a first world country. They have a robust economy. Our weapon of choice is not kinetic weapons anymore. It's sanctions and economic sanctions. And economic sanctions, if you have a poor country, they're kind of difficult to use. If you've got a country that's got a robust economy, sanctions can hurt pretty quickly and pretty significantly, and Turkey's headed there.
How is it when you sit in a room like that with a foreign leader who may not be has translators and they come lost in translation?
Yeah.
Do we have that, lost in translation?
Well, not in this particular event. Look, most of these people that I meet with that are heads of state, most of them have a fairly decent command of the English language. A lot of times they like to go through an interpreter for their own reasons. Mm-hmm. Before I met with Erdogan, I'd never met him until this meeting in the White House here some months ago. And so I asked Pompeo, Secretary of State Pompeo, I said, what's the deal with this guy? Does he speak English? And he said, no, he doesn't speak English. And I said, really? And he said, he just doesn't. And so my feeling when I came away is he truly does not speak English. I mean, everything went through translators, and you can watch someone's body language as you say something that you know is going to rub them, and he doesn't react until it's translated to him. His English probably isn't pretty good, so I came away with that.
Let's kind of tiptoe through the impeachment field for a second here.
Gee, look at the time.
It only took me about 10 minutes to get into this, and we've got some important stuff to talk about. And feel free to say what you want on this, because we know your position. We know how Jim Risch is here in Idaho. Quid pro quo aside, do you feel it was appropriate for President Trump to talk to the Ukrainian president about the Bidens?
Well, look, the President of the United States is charged with a lot of different responsibilities. And of course, one of those is to see that the money that we put overseas on foreign aid, mostly military, but a lot of foreign aid, his job is to see that it's done right. Barack Obama felt that way. Indeed, as Americans don't have a complete comprehension of how ubiquitous corruption is in the world. I mean, we run into it everywhere, even in places you wouldn't think it would be. The poster child for corruption really is the Ukraine, ever since it got its freedom from USSR. Mm-hmm. So it's always been a concern of ours. For the years I've been doing this, that has been a real consideration for us. Barack Obama himself was very concerned about it, and in fact appointed Joe Biden to look into it. And as we all know, a few months after that, Biden's son wound up on the board of the gas company there, which, by the way, is the poster child for corruption in the Ukraine. But in any event, I think it's important that leaders talk. I think it's important that they talk candidly all the time. And obviously, how those conversations go is between them. I do the same thing that he does, and I'm guarded with what I say. Generally, the president sometimes isn't as guarded as I am, but.
And these conversations are monitored. I think it's a learning lesson for all Americans, how many people actually sit in on these conversations.
Well, it's not only that. We travel around the world. I take a phone that is scrubbed before I leave, and it's a special phone, and it's scrubbed when I come back. But you have to assume people are listening. You have to assume there are people listening all the time on these conversations.
Okay. You're waiting for House Speaker Nancy Pelosi eventually to get the 2 articles of impeachment over to the Senate. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell raised some eyebrows when he said he was going to cooperate with the White House on how this was going to play out in the Senate. So it's kind of a 2-part question. How do you see it? Do you look forward to a vote on the Senate floor, and would you like to see witnesses called in the Senate?
Well, first
I
of all,
know that's a lot there, but
it is a lot to unpack. First of all, you said, was I surprised when I heard when Mitch McConnell said he was cooperating with the White House? You know, that's exactly what Chuck Schumer said back when they were doing the Clinton impeachment. So, you know, I mean,
it goes both ways. I get that.
Yeah.
I get that.
And there's no, on these kinds of things, it's not like a court proceeding where you have a lot of really detailed rules. It is like a trial, but it doesn't have the same sideboards on it that a case in a courtroom does. But no, I wasn't surprised at that. Indeed, we as jurors are free to talk to whoever we want to talk to find our own facts, to listen to what we want to listen to. Mm-hmm. And that's going on now, and it's going to continue.
So you believe it will be a fair process once?
Well, I think it's a fair process in that, look, there's no possible way I could sit down and read everything that's been written about this.
Right,
okay,
right.
But look, the facts. I have the advantage. I'm on the Intelligence Committee, so I get a little more than other people go. In addition to that, I'm friends with a lot of the people that are involved in this on one side or the other, so I get even more there.
Is there anything possibly that could sway your opinion?
Of course. Yeah, of course. You know, I mean, I'm going to keep an open mind till they call my name, Risch, Idaho. I'll cast a vote, but I will be comfortable with the vote that I cast, and I'll sleep well that night.
One last thing about the president, and then I want to move on to a couple other things. You've gotten to know him quite well. You know the family. You've traveled with Ivanka, and the other members of the family, I assume you've gotten to know. Take a moment and share with us here in Idaho that something that you can share about Donald Trump that we don't see, that we just see that
most of it you don't see.
Okay.
Yeah, most of it you don't see. What you see every day is him out on the lawn shouting at the reporters and then shouting back because there's a helicopter turning, so they're shouting at each other. That's generally what you get. His persona like this is entirely different. That probably doesn't shock you than it is when it's on TV. But he's whether you like him or not like him, everyone would agree that he's different. He's different than the other presidents we've had. I've had the chance to know a lot of them to a greater or lesser degree. He is substantially more human than the others. People say, well, you know the president, you have dinner with him, you have lunch with him, you travel with him. You must agree with him a lot. And I do agree with him some. But he and I have some very, very spirited discussions on areas we don't agree on. It's no secret, I think, that trade, we have a little different ideas on trade. And when we're doing foreign policy, a lot of countries will agree what policy should be. Others, not so much. We have a difference of opinion. He has never treated me with anything but respect when we argue it out. And you can't argue with him, unlike other presidents. I mean, it's a two-way conversation. You'll get 3 sentences in, and he'll say, oh, baloney, or something stronger than that, and give you his idea of what.
But he likes to win. He likes to win, though, right?
Yeah, but he doesn't enter these kinds of discussions with the idea that he's going to win. And you can actually move him. You can actually change his mind. It isn't easy, and it doesn't happen frequently. But you can have a discussion. At the end of the discussion, he's still the president. You're still not. And as long as you keep it like this, he's perfectly happy with it. He'll call you up and ask you your opinion. He'll call you in and ask you your opinion. He'll call you in when he's got a row with Erdogan and say, okay, you take it from here. You know, I mean, but he's. I have no trouble dealing with him. I have zero trouble dealing with him. But I respect him as the President of the United States.
Okay.
He's always respected my point of view.
Okay, and I appreciate you saying that because I don't want you to sit here and defend him because that's not your job. And I know you get questions in Washington all the time.
Yeah, I have never seen the level of hate and vitriol there is against a president like there is against this guy. And you can't defend him to those people. There's nothing you can say that will lower their anger and their animosity and their vitriol to the president. And I can't help those people.
And why do they hate him so much, do you feel?
Well, he's different. I mean, he expresses himself. I spent a lot of years in politics with you guys.
Yeah.
You politicians, you never tell us what's on your mind. Well, guess what? They now got a guy that tells them what's on his mind all day long.
Dozens.
And they hate that even worse. So, but he expresses himself very directly. He's I deal in diplomatic circles because I'm chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee a lot. I deal with heads of state all the time. But when you're talking with him, he's much more direct than we are talking, even with Erdogan or even with others that you have differences with. You talk in diplomatic language. He's not much on diplomatic language.
Yeah. So the dozens and dozens of tweets, we take that with a grain of salt. And
this has never happened before. Abraham Lincoln didn't go to the telegraph and start putting stuff out. Presidents just didn't do that.
Right.
And look, this is the strength of our democracy. If you think you've run into people in America that are spun up over the president, I deal with people from all over the world, particularly our cousins from Europe. I mean, they are just beside themselves over Trump. They just wring their hands. I say, look, we've been through a revolution. We've been through a civil war. We've been through 2 world wars. We've been through a major depression. And you know what? We're still here. We're still standing. The strength of America is not one man. It is not the President of the United States. The strength of America is the American people. We're going to be standing when this is over. We'll get through this as we have everything else.
But we do seem more divided now, don't you think?
I think so. And that really doesn't have as much to do with Donald Trump as it does with what's happened in the country. I grew up in an era, and I think probably you did, at least in your early years, where no one ever questioned what the Founding Fathers gave us when it came to a free enterprise, open market, entrepreneurial, capitalist system. I mean, the economy doesn't belong to the government. It belongs to the American people. Most places in the world, that's not true. The economy belongs to the government. And now, more and more people are saying, well, I'm here, and I'm entitled to something. I mean, I can't imagine me telling my father I was entitled to something. I mean, he would give me. He'd give me a very crystal clear and crisp understanding of what economics entails. And but we're in a different world. I mean, it truly is. We are divided in what America is and what it should be. Is it what the Founding Fathers gave us? Mm-hmm. And that is this free enterprise, free market system that has given us what we're experiencing today, which we are about to close out, the most prosperous year we've had in a half a century. Mm-hmm. The Chinese are about to close out the worst year they've had in about 3 decades. So look, the stock market, and when did this start to change? Well, you're going to be surprised to hear that it changed on Election Day 2016. You can take any graph you want, whether it's on the stock market, whether it's on unemployment, whether it's on wage growth. Take any of them. They all start on Election Day 2016, and they've been doing nothing but up. Do the American people appreciate this? We'll see, I guess.
We'll see this coming year, the election year, next year. Couple of quick things, then we'll wrap things up and let you go. Christmas passes with no North Korean gift to the U.S. Shocking.
Well, maybe. Look, we've watched 3 dictators, Kim Jong-un now, and his father and his grandfather. And as I've watched this, studied it, and learned about it through various sources that I have available, Kim Jong-un is not his father or his grandfather. He was educated in Switzerland. He has a different view. When he said, I happened to be in South Korea at the time. It was during the closing ceremonies of the Olympics. When it was announced that he was interested in sitting down and talking about denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula. That was something you couldn't have thought about even 5 years ago, and during his father and his grandfather's time, I mean, it was off the table. For him to say that was a turning point. And of course, the president decided he would talk to him. A lot of people criticized the president. I did not. I thought it was a good idea for him to talk to him. They've had discussions. The president has taken us back from the brink of what was a very bad place, headed in a very bad direction. Has it been successful yet? No. But the people in D.C. who want to bury the president and say, oh, it's been a tremendous failure. It has not been a failure. It is substantially better than it was under any president before this president. And I think we need to be patient. I want to be president. I want to be patient.
Yeah, dialogue is beneficial, but is Kim Jong-un playing us, as some might say?
I don't think so. For years and years and years, people said, you know what North Korea wants more than anything else in the world, they want a nuclear weapon. No, that's not what North Korea wants. What they want is they want security. Kim Jong-un wants it for himself, for his family, for his country. And a nuclear weapon, a lot of people argued, well, that's security. No, it isn't security. And I think he came to the realization that door number 2 maybe looks a lot better than door number 1. We need to give them that opportunity. We need to give them that opportunity to choose security that is a different kind of security than embracing and worshiping a nuclear weapon.
ISIS.
ISIS is beat down. The only thing we can predict after these decades now of watching this radical Islamic movement is that ISIS was no different than Al-Qaeda, no different than Boko Haram, no different than Al-Shabaab, no different than any one of these. And the only thing you can predict after they've been beat down is they will come up again with the same values, the same things that they want to do under a different name, perhaps in a different place. The most likely place is the Sahel in Africa, across the sub-Saharan Africa. But we're going to see it, and unfortunately, it's like whack-a-mole. I mean, they will come up, and we have to defend ourselves.
Border security. President Trump ran on that.
He did.
Building the wall. Are we going to see more movement on that? I know that the number of security agents along the border agents have increased. How do you view that playing out?
The 3 presidents before this president built a total of 650 miles of border wall. They did it for a reason, and that is when you get a wall, it isn't 100%, but it's really close to it, particularly where the wall stands. The president's view is that we ought to take advantage of that and put that physical barrier wherever we can to reduce the amount of illegal entry. I have friends on the other side of the aisle who are very much opposed to that for a lot of different reasons, some of whom, shockingly, are, well, we shouldn't have a wall. Mm-hmm. If you want to come to America, you come to America. Mm-hmm. Well, look, there's 8 billion people on this planet. We're only 330 million of them. And if you've traveled around the world, you can understand why the majority of those 8 billion want to come here. And we can't do that. I mean, we're a welcoming country. We're a country of immigrants. We will always be a country of immigrants. But we can't just open the door and say anybody who wants to come here can come here.
We have a robust and booming economy. Why, in your view, and this is an issue that's dealt at the local issue, do we have a increasing problem with homelessness when we have this robust economy?
Yeah, we really do. Yeah, we really do. The number of people, and look, there are people who cannot take care of themselves. Well, Americans are the most generous people in the world. I mean, you look at what we contribute compared to other countries. Even when they have these disasters in other countries around the world that had previously been a province or a colony of some other country, it's always America that steps up. We're always the one that puts in the most from it. And charity begins at home, and we continue to work at that. Homelessness today is not caused because people don't have a job. I mean, anybody who wakes up in the morning in America can have a job before noon. We are at full employment. They give a number of 3 point something, but look. People in business. I mean, I know businesses here in the Valley that want to run 3 shifts. They're running 1 because they can't fund even 2, let alone 3 shifts. Right. And when's the last time you went to a fast food restaurant and didn't see the sign out that said help wanted? Yeah. I mean, homelessness, the cause of homelessness is not being able to get employment. It's generally due to either substances of some kind that people have become involved in, or some mental issues that have to be dealt with, and these need to be dealt with. But there's no magic. There's no magic wand. There's no silver bullet. America will continue to do the kinds of things that we need to do to deal with these. Some communities are better than others. They tell me Los Angeles is particularly bad today. Oh. Yeah, interestingly enough, I saw an article from Spokane. They were going to pay a bunch of money for a study because they said, you know what? Here in Spokane, we got this homelessness, we have these drugs, we have this criminal problem. we need to study Boise, Idaho. You know, they're very close to us. Geographically, they have the same kind of demographics and everything. Why do we have that and they don't? Gosh, I'd have done the study for them for a whole lot less money and been able to resolve the issue for them. But yeah, they deal with things differently than we deal with things. Anytime you step away from law and order, anytime you step away from allowing drugs to have a free reign in your community, you got problems. And major, we're seeing that right now. It breaks your heart to see cities like Seattle and Portland that were beautiful.
San Francisco.
San Francisco, Los Angeles. Right. I mean, it breaks your heart to see these cities go through this.
Next week you hit the ground running back in Washington, right?
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Hopefully. Okay. And then,
hopefully. Right. Anyway, we will. And
well, I appreciate you coming in the day after Christmas.
No,
I really do.
I'm glad to do it.
Anything else you want to talk about? Because I'm out of questions.
Well, gosh, we can sit here and talk all day. I deal with the issues that face the world. As a message to Idahoans, I have the duty, I guess. I go out. I don't travel a lot, but I will go out at least once a year, sometimes a couple times a year. And I go to third world countries. And this August, I actually was in Africa. I've seen poverty all over the world. I've never seen poverty like there is in the African countries. I mean, when you see people and you deal with people who have nothing. When I say I have nothing, I mean they have nothing. Right. And you look at that and you think, why is it like that there, and why is it like that here? And of course it hurts your brain to try to figure those things out. But when I get off the airplane, I come back in America. This is the greatest country in the world. I mean, bar none. Even countries that purport to be like us or a little bit like us, that maybe even have semi-democracies and what have you. There's no place like this.
And double that when you come back to Idaho.
And that's true. I come home every weekend. Vicki and I come back every weekend, and I get off here in Idaho. It might be here, it might be in Idaho Falls, it might be Coeur d'Alene, it might be Twin, but there is no place like this. I tell fellow senators back there, and that come, particularly ones that come from Rust Belt states or what have you, and I say, look, in Boise, Idaho, you can walk down, or Nampa, Idaho, or Caldwell, Idaho, or Coeur d'Alene. You can walk down any street or any alley at any time of the night or day and not worry that you're not going to get to the other end and not have your wallet of your life. And they said, nah, come on, you got bad parts. No, we do not. You can come here and I'll walk down that alley or street with you. And it's something that we have here which is like a lot of things, like your family and other things. You just take a lot of these things for granted, and God bless America. God bless the American people. We did this. We, the American people, did this. And I tell kids that when I speak to high school classes. I tell them who's got a smartphone in their pocket? Oh, who's got a car? Oh, who did this for you? And they kind of look at you like, I don't know. And I said, well, let's start with who didn't do this for you. The government didn't do this for you. I said, your parents did this for you. Your grandparents did this for you. Your great-grandparents did this for you. You're Americans. You've been taught how to take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Take care of your families. Take care of your neighbors. Anybody who tells you the government can take care of you better than you can take care of yourself is not telling you the truth. You can do this. You're Americans. We always rise to take care of ourselves. And what we have is the result of the generations we've had of educating ourselves and the next generations to help each other and to take care of ourselves.
All right, Senator Jim Risch, thanks for coming in.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Good luck in 2020 on Capitol Hill.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I know you have lots to deal with.
We're Americans. We'll get through this.
We'll figure it out. Okay. All right. And that's it. We'll talk to you later.